Hi everyone, welcome back to KWR's Patterns. In this tutorial, I am going to talk about the basic trigonometric ratios, and there are three basic trigonometric ratios, and we are also going to get into solving problems that involve the three ratios. Now, if we're given a right triangle, and there are a couple of things that we must know. We must know that the longest side is always a hypotenuse, right? And the other two are the legs. Now, if you are given an angle measure here, now that angle measure, the opposite, this segment opposite this angle measure is what we could just simply know as the opposite, right? And there's also the segment that is beside here. We'll call this adjacent. All right, the adjacent. So this is what you need to know, the three basic things. We have the adjacent that is beside the angle measure, not the right angle, and then the segment that is always the one that is opposite that angle measure here. Now the hypotenuse is always the longest length. Now there are three basic trig ratios. Now I am going to focus on the first one, which we call it the sine. And sine is simply the opposite. Sine is equals to the opposite over hypotenuse. And we also will note that the sine is always that segment that's opposite over the hypotenuse, and you're given the angle measure here. But if there is another scenario, even if you're given the angle measure here, right, and this would now be the adjacent, this would be the opposite. Okay, so this is the ADJ adjacent, and this would always be the hypotenuse, the longest length or the longest leg. And so with this now, for this angle measure, if we're talking about the adjacent over the hypotenuse, we call that the cosine. Cosine is equals to the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and HYP for hypotenuse. Now, if we are given the angle measure here, right, and let's say this is here, and we have this is always be the adjacent, and we have here we have here, let's say this is, say, the opposite, and this is the hypotenuse. Now tan, TAN is simply going to be equals to the opposite over adjacent. Okay, tan is the opposite over adjacent. So it's your opposite here over your adjacent is for tan. Now, what I want to also know that there's this short way to memorize all of this for the trig ratio. We call it the SOHCAHTOA. And the SOHCAHTOA is simply saying sine is opposite over opposite, H for hypotenuse and S for sine. Cosine is simply the adjacent for A over the hypotenuse H, and tan is simply your opposite over your adjacent, which is your O over H. Now, with that being said, I am going to get into now some how to use it and how to apply these. So if you are given, say, an angle measure here, and you need to find you're given the length 5 and you need to find x, you have to first identify that the 5 is your adjacent, which is adjacent to your hypotenuse. Once you're able to identify that and know that this is your opposite and nothing is here, which you were not asked about the opposite, but you're given this. Now you have this 5 here, which is the known, and this is the unknown. In order to find x, which is the hypotenuse here, you're going to simply use, because this is the adjacent, so you know that you cannot use sine. It has to be cosine, because this adjacent over hypotenuse. So you're going to use your cosine angle measure there, which is 70 degrees, equal the adjacent, which is 5 over x. Now, First, before we even go any further, I want to bring to light to you with this calculator, and I want you to know a few things. You have to change the mode on your calculator to make sure that it is in degree mode. So you turn the calculator on, you go to mode, you scroll down to radiant, you go across the degree, because if it's in radiant, you have to go across the degree, and you press enter, and that would simply clear your calculator. All right, make sure that is now, sorry, not clear your calculator, but now you know that it's in the degree mode and not radiant mode. Now, in order to solve this, you try to find cosine 70, the value of cosine 70. So you go to, this is this sine, cosine, and tangent. So you don't need to go second function, right? Because that's only for the arc measures. If you need to find the measure of the angle. So now we need to find cosine 70. So we press cosine 70. I like to close my parentheses, and this will give me a value of 0.34201. You can continue, equal 5 over x. Now cross multiply for this. When you cross multiply, right, you get 0.34201 433x equals 5. And in order to solve for 5, you now have to divide that by this number, right, is 0.3421433. And when you divide by that, you're also going to divide that number over here, because whatever you do on one side, you do it also on the other side. So you are going to have 5 divided by this. So what you can do, you can clear this first. You can have 5, right, divided by parentheses cosine 70 degrees, and then you put that back in parentheses, right, and hit enter, and you will get 14. X will be equals to 14.619. Now, if they ask you to give it to you in say the actually I'll say the 100th place, if you want it in the 100th place, you would simply do the 9 comes after. 9 is greater than 5, so x would be equals to 14.62. all right, and that was the value for x. And now I want to show you, you go back and clear, because this is using a calculator. If I do 5 on my calculator divided by 0.3421433, see what I got? Same value. So I just showed you how to use it using the calculator and achieving your answer, all right? Because it's set up like this, because it's simply, you're taking x is going to equals to 5 divided by whatever cosine that. So simply, another way to simplify this, you can just write at this side that after you've written the cosine, 70 degrees is equals to 5 over x. You know that value you're going to get, so you're going to say x now, you cross multiply, x is equals to 5 divided by cosine 70 degrees. Okay, so that's basically what it is. All right, now let's move on to the second one. The second one here is that now this is opposite. All right, you have to identify, and this is the hypotenuse. Okay, so opposite over hypotenuse, that's associated with the trig ratio of sine, okay, from SOHCAHTOA. So sine, you're going to write sine, and the angle measure there is 55 degrees, is going to be equal to opposite, which is x over 9. So sine 55, so then what we're going to do, we are going to do sine 55 degrees times 9 to give you x. So sine 5 degrees on your calculator. So sine 55 degrees, close that, enter. You're going to get 0.342 0.01, sorry, not 0.819152, yada yada, all those numbers. But easy said, you just simply now multiply that by 9. Don't change anything, don't rewrite anything, and you're going to end up with the value there, which is x is equals to 7.372368,399. And if they ask you for the answer in the 10th place, right, 10th place, you simply write x is equals to 7.4, because the 7 here is beside the 3 is greater than 5. So then you just round up your number that's in front of it, okay, the preceding number. Now the last one is the last scenario. So now this is your where your angle measure your angle is. So this is your opposite, always labeled for those students who are not strong learners. Always label opposite, and this is not the hypotenuse. Now this is the adjacent. This is adjacent to it. So trig ratio that's opposite and adjacent included is tan. So you write tan 65 degrees equal opposite, which is x over 7. So tan 65 on your calculator, tan 65, close your parentheses, and you will get 2.1445 times that by 7 equals x. So I'm going to times it by 7 since it's in the calculator, and you will get x is equal to 15.011. If you're asked to write this in the 100th place, it's simply the 100th place. You simply write x is equals to 15.01. All right, the one after is less than 5, so then you just keep the number, you don't round up, keep that number, okay? But if you were asked to write this in the 1000th place, then you would have to look at this number that's after it, which is you have 15.01154, and because that 5 is there, you're going to write 15.012. All right, that 5, then you write it, you round that, okay? So another thing that I want to add to this lesson also is that if you have this angle measure here of 65, this is a right angle. So the total measure of angles in a triangle is 180 degrees. Then this would be 35. Now also, sine 65 would equal to our cosine, whatever that number is, 35. So top it off. Let me just test. I want to show you this and test this for you. So say for instance, I have my 35 there. Now this is my 35 degrees, right? And with this 35, now this number is going to be our opposite, right? And this is going to be our adjacent, right? But if I put my 15 here, let's put 15 for argument's sake. We're not going to use the decimals, or we can use the decimal. 15.01, okay? Or just 15, it doesn't matter, because if we round it to a nearest to a whole number, it would be just be 15. And I want to do now, say for instance, cosine of 65. Cosine 65 would give me opposite, which is x, over hypotenuse there, which is 15. Cosine 65 on your calculator, cosine 65, close my parentheses, end up 4.422 times that by 15 times 15, I end up with 6.339. Close enough, all right? 6.339. X would be 6.339 here. Now, what I want to say, and this would be using the value of this. So if I want to now find the sine 35, I can do sine 35 degrees now. Actually, let's do it right beside here. So sine 35, because I just told you that actually it wouldn't be 35, it would be 25, not 35, sorry, 25, because 90 minus 65 is 25, so it's 25. My mistake. We're humans, we make mistakes, but just be careful, please. The 25 degrees would be now the opposite, which is 7 over, well, actually, let's not use it as 7. I want to do the let this be x. So it's x, the opposite over the 15. All right, opposite over 15. So I'm going to do sine 25. It's going to give me 0.422618 times 15, yada yada, times 15 equals x. When I times it by 15 here, notice I get also x would be equals to 6.339, yada yada yada. All right, that's the same thing. Notice it's the same thing I got here. So what I was pretty much telling you is that the sine of an angle measure here is equals to the cosine of its opposite, all right, or cosine of its complement, because complement meaning both angle measures are added up is going to equal to 90 degrees. Okay, so that's it for trig and its ratios. And please remember SOHCAHTOA, right? That's the easiest way that you can use to remember your trig ratios. Label, right, as you go along when you get your diagram, so you don't make any mistake. And if you're given word problems, please try to sketch a diagram of what the word problem is saying, so that will help you in solving it, because there will be questions, word problems on any test, and you will have to use applied trig ratio to solve those. Okay, thank you. That's it for now, and see you soon. Bye.